X-Bladez Inline Skater on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by the Code Monkeys, who we already know from Turrican on the Game Boy and Missile Command on the Game Boy Color, and released 2002 in North America and Europe. In this game, you race against other players on inline skates all over the world. The game is so unbelievably ugly. I would say it's the worst looking game that we reviewed yet. The maps look bad, the racers all look bad, the background look bad, the title screen looks hideous. The music is extremely annoying. I give the presentation 0 out of 5 points. On the same level as the presentation is the gameplay. The game is just an extremely bad version of Mario Kart. It is the same style of game, but in all aspects the worst version of that. From the 3 existing items, 2 are completely useless. Sometimes I just pause and I don't even know what hit me. There is no fun at all in that game. Because it is functioning, I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There's nothing redeeming about that game. Every aspect of it sucks. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Duel Masters Shadow of the Code on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Mystic Soft and released in the PAL regions in 2004 and in North America in 2005. The game is based on the manga Duel Masters, and in the game you play the existing card game Duel Masters. The English version of the trading card game was produced by Wizards of the Coast, and the game is quite similar to Magic the Gathering. Back to the video game. This game is a sequel to 2 other Duel Master games on the Game Boy Advance, and the story takes place after them. Since Lucky Wheel decided that I played the 3rd game first, it was hard to get into the story. Everyone loved me and wanted my autographs. That never happens. I liked the basic idea of the presentation, with the sprites of the monsters on the field, but I think the game is trying a bit too much. The most monster pictures and sprites look like a pixelated mess, and it was hard for me to recognize the abilities without going in the details. I also don't really like the presentation of the characters and dialogues. It might be close to the manga or anime, but I think it doesn't really look good. The same with the overworld map, which is just like a menu. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. I like Magic the Gathering, and having a different, slightly easier version of it for a maybe younger audience is cool. The problem I see with this game is mostly the presentation. Since it was hard for me to recognize what the cards can do, in the beginning you also get a lot of cards, which makes sense if you have played the first 2 games. But if you join like me in the 3rd game and you get so many cards that you need to look in detail to understand the abilities, it gets annoying very fast. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. If you know the card game and cards already, it might be a good fit, but if not, it is not much fun looking through everything to try to understand it. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Gator, also known in Japan as Shippo on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Natsume and released in 1999 in Europe and the US and in 1992 in Japan. The box art of the 2 games is a bit different per region. Europe and US went with the edgy, action, realistic, and Japan with the cute. The game is a puzzle or jump and run game and is very similar to older card game. In Gator, you play an alligator that fights with its tail. In every level you need to open all the chests to find the key to go to the next room. In the first areas you can choose the order of the levels freely, and sometimes there is a boss fight. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks quite nice. I like the sprites of the player characters and of the enemies. The level designs are nothing special, especially in the underwater parts. It can be hard to see if you are underwater right now or not. The bosses look fine. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is actually fun. In the beginning I thought the game might be too easy, but the later levels can get quite tricky. The jump is very floaty, but the game is using that nicely. I also like the boss fights, just the last one was a bit easy. The respawning of the enemies in the levels can be annoying, but at least the enemies cannot hurt you directly. There's a fair time until they actually spawn. The game is using its mechanics very well. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It's a fun playthrough that takes around 90 minutes with an increase in difficulty per area. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Honkaku Taisen Shougi Ayumu on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Culture Brain and released exclusively in Japan in 2000. The game is, like the name already told us, a game about Shougi. Shougi is a board game and also known as Japanese chess. My problem for this review? I don't know how to play Shougi, so yeah, I still review it. The presentation of the game is simple. There's just one background track and the game board is looking simple too. There's nothing special, and if you do illegal moves there's no indication why it was illegal. Maybe not important for experienced players, but for me that would have been useful. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game has 2 modes. First a match against the computer, and second are 100 challenges with different starting situations. There's no story or tutorial mode. The game is better safe and multiple save slots. You can also redo your last turn. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just for Shougi fans and people that know how to play it. There's no tutorial or anything like that, so if you don't know how to play, you won't learn it here. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Shippū Iron League on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Sun-L and released 1994 exclusively in Japan. It is a platformer based on the anime Shippū Iron Leaguer. In the game you play a team of Iron Leaguers that are robots that are all good in a certain sport. In the story mode you start with a baseball and karate Liga, and after every area you fight against a different Liga that will join your team afterwards. Every Liga got their own HP bar, attack and sometimes a unique way of movement. You can freely switch between the Ligas by pressing start or select. There's also survival high score mode, where you start with all the Ligas unlocked already, and you do one stage of each area and try to get a good time. There's a last mode in which you play minigames of 3 different Ligas that shows them during their sport. The game is looking really nice. I like the sprites of the players and enemies, and also the backgrounds look good. The main menu theme is great, and during the gameplay you also have always background music. There are even little cutscenes with dialogues and different background music. They put a lot of effort into the presentation. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The game is fun to play, especially because you can switch between the characters. They all are at least a bit different. The level designs are nothing special, but work good. That you have 3 modes in such a game is great variety. The only problem I saw was that your Ligas with special movement can die, and then you can be stuck because you need that movement. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a great platform and really fun. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Double Yakuman II on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by ImageSoft and released 1993 exclusively in Japan. The game is a Mahjong game. Not a Mahjong solitaire game, but a real Mahjong game. The good thing for me is that I know how to play Mahjong, so I actually knew what to do in that game. The bad thing for me is that I know Chinese Mahjong, and at least in China there are a lot of different rule variations depending on the region. And I'm not sure if it is in Japan more clear, but there were no rules or anything like that for the specifics, so you just got to know. The presentation is good, unlike that it shows a black background, which makes the game easier to look at. The stones are recognizable and the information is visible. I like that the enemies are not just named, but have little faces, so you can play against some grandpa or a penguin. The game has 3 background tracks and you can choose which one to use. The presentation is doing nothing special, but a solid job. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is exactly how you imagine Mahjong, but it's great. Sadly there's no rule clarifications, which I would have liked, and there's no story mode or anything like that. Since the gameplay does its job, but not more, I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you're a fan of Mahjong and know how to play. The game is not explaining anything, but if you're a fan, I think you will have fun with it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points.
Finish him! Scorpion wins. Fatality.
Mortal Kombat Deadly Lines on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Midway and released 2002 in North America and Europe. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have formed the Deadly Alliance and it is your job to stop them. It is a typical Mortal Kombat fighting game. There are 12 playable characters, some of them you need to unlock first, and 2 game modes, Arcade and Survival. In every fight, and sometimes in minigames, you earn coins, and with that you can unlock different things in the crypt, not knowing before what you will unlock. The game has a quite realistic look. I'm not too sure what to think of it. On one hand it looks not too bad on the GBA, and on the other hand it is looking a bit like a pixelated mess. I'm not sure. The background looked fine and rotate when you move. The music is okay, but Mortal Kombat has some great themes and sadly this game doesn't really use them. The narrator sounds cool. I guess the presentation is 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is really nice. The special moves are easy to do, mostly quarter cycles and a button, and even the fatalities are not difficult. I really like the controls. Just having 2 face buttons makes it a bit difficult for the Game Boy Advance, but they did the controls well, and as soon as I figured out how to do a special move, I could repeat it with no issues. The variety is fine for a fighting game. You have your arcade modes with different endings and the survival mode with a lot of unlockables. The game really feels like a Mortal Kombat game. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, it is a good Mortal Kombat game on a handheld. Try it out, it's fun. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Peetan on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Interstate and released 1991 exclusively in Japan. In Peetan you are a mother chicken that tries to save her little chickens from an evil dog. You do that by laying eggs and shooting your children up with a seesaw. I guess just the hatched children are worth saving and not the eggs. The game is a very arcade-like puzzler. Every level has a different setup and you try to save the chickens. All 5 levels is a little bonus stage where you can get a chicken back. The game looks okay, nothing too special. The chicken sprites look fine, the enemy looks fine, and there's a little background music that changes whenever the enemy is trying to eat the chicken. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game is a minigame. You just lay the eggs and shoot the chickens up. There's not much to do and it's not so interesting. It is fun for a little, very little while. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a fine execution of the game idea, but not very interesting. You won't miss anything with never playing that game. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Panel no Ninja Kesamaru on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Epoch and Sas Sakata and released 1992 exclusively in Japan. In this puzzler game you play a ninja that in every level needs to find the key and the door to finish it. To do that you can switch the floor plates around and move blocks. Sometimes you find some upgrades that let you throw ninja stars or other weapons to defend yourself against the enemies. The game looks fine but unspectacular. The presentation is really basic. There is background music and sound effects and they are okay. The level design is simple. There are no decorations or anything like that. It is very functional. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The basic idea of the game is fine. There are 3 stages and in every stage are multiple levels that you can do in any order you want. The levels are really fast but can get tricky. There's not much more to say. What you see in this review is what you get. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. The formula is getting old quickly and there's not much fun in this game. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Majjokko Cream-chan no Gokko Series 2 Kisekae Angel on the Game Boy Advance. In this game, with the extremely long title, you play as the witch Cream-chan that needs to help someone by collecting the 7 most beautiful smiles. Yep, that is the story. You play a witch called Cream-chan that runs around to help people in the town to collect smiles. That game is a long fetch quest. You just run around aimlessly and talk to everybody. After a while you will get some objects and you can do some minigames to make some other objects to give that to someone else. That you repeat all the time. The game actually looks fine, but there's not much to see. I like the look of Cream-chan and of the city, but the dialogues are all quite boring to look at and the minigames that I saw also didn't look very good. The music always starts new whenever you enter a building or a new screen. That happens often and is quite annoying. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Well, there's not much gameplay. Run around through the same city all the time, minigame, run around. That is it. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. If you have anything going on in your life, whatever it is, do that instead. If you have nothing going on, just do nothing. That is still better than playing this game. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Sylvanian Melody, Mori no Nakama to Odori Mashi on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Natsume and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version with better music. The game is based on the Sylvanian family series, which seems to be a series of plushed animals and toys. This game is a rhythm game. There's one minigame, and that is pushing 3 buttons in the right moment. The game looks very cute. I like the bright colors, and the characters all have cute look to them. In the dialogues are little animations, and everything looks very polished. While it's always the same minigame, they have different characters and objects as the nodes. The presentation is fine. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is boring. That there's just one kind of rhythm minigame is disappointing. Like this, it's just a worse version of Beatmania GB2. The buttons often felt unresponsive, and it was hard to know the exact timing to press. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Play Beatmania GB2 if you're looking for a rhythm game on the Game Boy Color. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Flushed Away on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ultra and released 2006 in the PAL regions and North America. The game uses different localized versions of the game title and is based on the DreamWorks movie Flushed Away. I've never seen the movie, so I'm missing the nostalgia here. The game is a beat-em-up game. You run as different rats through the levels and you beat up insects and other rats to get to the end of the level. From time to time comes a boss fight or a stage with a bit different mechanics. The game uses a password system to save. The game looks good. The sprites are well made, the backgrounds are nice, and there's good background music. The bosses have unique attacks and look funny too. There's a little cutscene before each stage. The game reminds me a bit of old arcade beat-em-up games. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The problem is the gameplay. The game is heavily relying on fighting as the main thing to do, but sadly the fighting system is not really interesting and never feels good. So the game is just not fun. It is a big problem if you're making a beat-em-up game, but the fighting doesn't feel good. Additionally, the game uses a password system on the Game Boy Advance. That's lazy. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game looks good and has fine music, but sadly it is just not fun, so I don't know why anyone should play it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Soccer Kid on the Game Boy Advance. This game was originally made for Amiga and released in 1993. I first thought the game is a FIFA-like game, but no. The box art already tells us it is a fast-paced platform adventure. The Game Boy Advance port that you see in this review was developed by Chrysalis Software and released 2006. Space Pirates took the World Cup trophy and immediately get hit by an asteroid after that. The fragments of the trophy are all over the world and it's your job to get them. For that you run through 5 levels that are in different countries like London, Russia and Japan. And for whatever reason, everyone and everything wants to kill you. You can hit them back with your football. The problem is if you shoot your ball away or jump, then you're without your ball and you need to get it back since it's your only weapon. The game looks fine. I think the sprites look good and the backgrounds are fine too. The foregrounds have always a lot of local objects depending on the region the level plays in. The music is fine too. One big problem with the presentation that is also affecting the gameplay is that you don't see much of the screen. Often enemies get in your view and it's already too late to dodge them. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is quite difficult. I needed long to get past the first stage. That you always have to take your ball with you is the point of the game, but it's also a bit annoying. I didn't have that much fun with the game. I think if you play the game more, it can feel quite good to have control over the ball, but I never really got to that point. Additionally, the game gets saved by a password system, which I don't like for Game Boy Advance games. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I think it is a well-made game and a nice concept, but I personally got annoyed by always taking the ball with me and by the hard difficulty. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Heavyweight Championship Boxing on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Tosi and released 1990 in Japan and North America. In Japan the game is just called Boxing. In Heavyweight Championship Boxing, you box. In the beginning you can choose your fighter and your knockout punch, and then you play in an arcade mode fashion against the other opponents. Between every fight you can upgrade a stat of your choosing. The game changes between a top view mode of the ring and a POV fight scene. The game looks for an early Game Boy game quite good, but especially the backgrounds and between the fight scenes are very easy. The POV scene looks fine and there's some background music. Because it is an early Game Boy game, I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is just like the presentation. Fine, but simple. You fight against different opponents, but the game never really feels different. I like that I put that upgrade system in and multiple boxes to choose from. That is more than the minimum. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I think it is a fine game, but also nothing special that would make the game worth playing. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Hello, Idol debut Kids Idol Isekai game on the Game Boy Advance. First of all, I want to explain again that I review every game and that the lucky wheel decides what game I review. So, with that being said, in this game you play a kid that is trying to be an idol. For that you go to idol school to learn dancing and makeup and how to be an idol. Yep. The game is mostly based on minigames and the different subjects that you learn. You unlock new outfits and so on. The game looks fine, but has a rather easy style. The faces look very cartoony and the minigames look not very special. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is boring. You wake up, you go to the classes and you do the minigame that after a few minutes already repeats himself. Maybe the game has more to offer later, but I'm not willing to play more of that. It gives the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think I would find it highly disturbing if anyone over the age of 14 plays that game longer than 30 minutes. So don't do that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Aguri Suzuki F1 Super Driving on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Pixel and released 1993 exclusively in Japan. It was released on the Super Nintendo and on the Game Boy. The game is a Formula 1 racing game. You drive from a behind-the-car perspective through different tracks. There are time races and races against other racers. After every race you can visit different shops to buy new parts and change the setup and reset the stats of your car. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks quite nice. The race itself looks very easy, but the menus have little animations for every action, like a little pit stop to change the setup of your car. That is very charming. Besides that, there is not much to see. There is also no background music during the racing. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine, but also not very special. You can see the whole map to see the curves coming, that is very handy. Besides that, there is not much interesting. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Not really. I think it is a worse version of V-Rally Championship Edition, which makes sense since V-Rally came out 5 years later, but now I would recommend playing V-Rally. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Kirby Star Stacker on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by HAL Laboratory and released in Europe, North America and Japan in 1997. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version of the game that added colors and better music. This Kirby game is a Tetris-like puzzler. You need to collect stars, and you do that if the stars are between the two same friends of Kirby. There are some different modes, like challenges and a survival mode, where you can play until you are defeated to get the high score. The game looks very good. The Kirby games are all well made, and this one is too. Everything is very cute. There's nice background music and the gameplay looks nice. At the same time the presentation is quite easy. Suitable for that kind of game, but still nothing too impressive. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is really fun. The challenges in the mode are great and the endless mode is also very good. It is very Tetris-like, but has its own mechanics and something unique. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, it is a very good game. I like the gameplay and such puzzles age very well. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Tom and Jerry 2 Frantic Antics, also known as Tom and Jerry 2 the movie in Europe and Tom and Jerry Part 2 in Japan. This game was developed by Beam Software and released in North America and Europe in 1993 and in Japan in 1994. It is a jump and run game featuring Tom and Jerry as playable characters. It is based on Tom and Jerry the movie from 1992. In the game you play through multiple levels, always playing Tom or Jerry. The levels are typical jump and run levels with some variety. They are the run from left to right, find a specific thing, and scrolling background levels. Tom and Jerry both plays the same and can only jump and do a rolling attack. The game looks fine, but nothing more. The sprites are okay and the backgrounds look quite nice. I also like the background music. Between the levels is sadly just a picture, and that is always the same, and the title of the level with the objective. While the game follows the plot of the movie, there's not much to explain the plot. Just the name and the description of the level and one line of dialogue at the end of each level. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game plays fine. The running and jumping feels good and the levels have the right length to stay fine. But at the same time there's also nothing special about the gameplay. It is a standard jump and run game. Additionally, the attack, the only one you have, is done by running and pressing during running, down, forward and B. That is not working very reliable and is a huge problem. The B button is not used in a different way, so why not just make the roll attack by pressing B? I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not a bad game, but also offers nothing special that would make me play the game again. I give the game 3 out of 5 points. Hype, the time quest on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Planet Interactive and released 2000 exclusively in Europe. It is a port of the computer game with the same title. You are the knight Hype that gets sent back in time and has to fight through 4 different eras to get back to his time and save everyone from the evil Dark Knight. In the game you play a Playmobil man in a Playmobil world. I think in the computer version the story makes sense. Here not really. Besides a bad looking start and end cutscene, there's not much story. The 4 different times also just have different hub worlds that look nearly identical besides a different color scheme. In every era you play 3 levels in any order you want. You have a dragon riding level and then a boss fight. After that you go to the next era and so on. The game looks really good. I like the colors and the music is great too. There's always background music and the levels look really nice. The player and NPC sprites look a bit weird. They tried to recreate the look of a Playmobil figure, but kind of failed. The start and end of game cutscenes are hideous. They just tried to take rendered pictures from the computer version, but because of the lower resolution it looks like garbage. Still, the game in total is beautiful and it gives the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is a typical jump and run. The problem is that the levels, special abilities and everything gameplay wise is extremely standard. There's nothing that stands out. The jump is floaty and all special abilities, arrows and different spells, do the same. They one-shot enemies. So why are there 3 different spells? No idea. The bosses also just have 1 or 2 attacks that they repeat until they die. The only thing that changes is that they do the same attack a bit faster whenever the HP is low. That gives the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a not very creative but solid jump and run game that looks nice and is a fine 90-minute playthrough. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Ultima, Runes of Virtue on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Origin System and released 1991 in Japan and 1992 in North America. In Japan the game is just called Ultima. The game is part of the famous Ultima video game series. It is a RPG dungeon crawler. You choose 1 of 4 characters, all with slightly different abilities, and then you can go directly nearly everywhere and try to find the runes. The game looks easy and boring. I didn't really like the presentation. The sound is fine, but the graphics are, even for the Game Boy, very basic. There are no real backgrounds and the objects in the dungeons look easy and get repeated all the time. The enemy sprites are also nothing special. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay was for me the same. Everything felt very basic. You can have 1 attack on each button based on the equipped weapon and that's it. It can be hard to hit the enemies, especially when they move around fast. There's no level system based on experience, so that killing enemies never feels satisfying. At least the game is saved by battery save. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I know that Ultima is a big series with many fans, so it hurts me to say, but no. For me, without nostalgia to that game, I don't see anything special that would make it worth playing. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Rainbow Islands on the Game Boy Color. This is a port of a 1987 arcade game. The game released exclusively in Europe in 2001 and was developed by Taito. In the game you play little boys that can shoot rainbows, climb on top of them, and with that get higher and higher in the level. From the floor is coming water, so you need to hurry to get to the top. On the way are enemies that you can defeat with your rainbows. There are two modes, story mode, with not much story, and a challenge mode. The game looks not very good. It looks close to the original arcade game, but that didn't look so good either, so I give it points for being close to the original, but not many. There's background music, but not many different tracks, and the sound effects get annoying quickly too. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very boring. You make rainbows, you climb on top of them, you jump higher. Sometimes you make multiple rainbows in a row, but that's it. I don't know. Most of that arcade ports that released for the Game Boy Color didn't impress me. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not very fun. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Onigashima Pachinko-Ten on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Marionette and released exclusively in Japan in 1991. I am not sure if I understood the game, maybe not, but I review based on what I understood. You run around a casino, you can play at different tables, the always same minigame. You throw balls into a machine and depending where they land you get points. That's it. The overworld looks more or less same in every room. The machines all look the same until you use them. Then you get a few details and you can play on them. The tables look okay, but also not very special, and the casino looks extremely bad and confusing. There is some background music. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is throwing a ball in at different tables and hope to get more points. I don't really get it, but that's all I saw, so yeah. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Playing the game is a bit like watching a screensaver. Just somehow worse. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Batman Vengeance on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Ubisoft Montreal and released 2001 and is based on the new Batman Adventure series. In the game you play Batman, Robin and Batgirl to defeat the Joker, Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. The game is a beat-em-up platformer. You have different gadgets like a batarang and a grappling hook. There are also levels where you drive the Batmobile or fly with the Batplane, I guess. The game is saved by a password system. In the first second with the 3D view, I thought this game would look great, but not really. The levels look okay at best and the assets in the level repeat often. The sprites look a bit weird too and there's no real pow behind your punches. They just happen, not even sure if you hit anything or not. The music is nothing special too. The cutscenes are just still images with 3D rendered characters. I guess from the PlayStation 2 version of the game. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is bad. The fighting system is boring, the bosses are uncreative and the level design sucks too. So many bottomless pits where you just die. Cool gadgets like the grappling hook can just be used in specific spots and are not very fun. And the different level types that exist, like driving some vehicles, are sadly also not fun. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. That already gives a first impression of what you will get. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. While being Batman sounds great, here it is not. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Disney's Treasure Planet on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Bizarre Creations and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. The game uses a localized title based on the native language of the country. It is based on Disney's Treasure Planet and is an action-adventure game in an isometric view. You go through different areas. In every area you need to collect a certain number of items that are at the end of the levels. Levels are a bit dungeon-like, where you need to find keys and solve puzzles to progress further. If you have done all the levels and collected all the things, you can go to the next area and start collecting there. From time to time you see a scene from the movie, or you have a minigame where you drive the Solar Surfer. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks fine. The level look nice, but the sprites of the human-like NPC and of the players can look a bit pixelated. They tried to recreate the look of the movie, but I'm not sure the Game Boy Advance was capable of that. At least not in the way they did it. The movie scenes look okay, but not more. The background music of the game is fine. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay, on the other hand, has some issues. It is always the same, 3 levels and then the next area. They tried a bit of a Zelda style, but didn't catch the good dungeon design that these games have, and Treasure Planet doesn't have an overworld, so it's just a dungeon-like levels. The levels are way too long and start getting annoying quickly. Additionally, you have the password system, the beacon of laziness. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is not fun, it is tedious. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Mahu Kishi Rainer's II, the missing color on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Pandora Box and released 1995 exclusively in Japan. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added more colors and better music. The game got a fan translation that I used, released by Piers Hillock. This game is the second in the series. It is a classic RPG. The thief stole all the colors and because of that the world is starting to crumble. It is the task of you, a group of 3 magical knights, to get the colors back. You do that in a typical RPG fashion. Run around, kill enemies, level up and destroy the bosses. The game is saved by a battery save. The game is looking very great. It has good background music. The overworld looks not too special but fine. The fights, while having the standard look, provide a charm through the fighting animations. I like that the story uses the limitations of the Game Boy with the missing color storyline. I think for a Game Boy RPG that is nearly the best you can do. I don't think the voice lines were the best idea, but still. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay has sadly some issues. First of all, the gameplay is good. It is a standard RPG gameplay. Sadly, it comes with the standard RPG issues. The encounter rate is way too high. All of you stab something new is attacking you. There's no big world map like other RPGs have, and the game feels more like a dungeon crawler, where you go from one dungeon to the next. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just for genre fans. The game looks good and is well made, but the high encounter rate can really get annoying quickly. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Turok Evolution on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by RFX Interactive and released 2002 in North America and the PAL regions. You got transferred to the Lost Lands and they shoot everything that moves, mainly enemy soldiers and dinosaurs. You can play one out of 2 characters that have different start weapons, and then you run through the level and shoot. The game is a beat 'em up, or in that case more of a shoot 'em up. You run from left to right and try to reach the exit without dying. The game is saved by a password system. The game looks good, the sprites are really nice and the levels look cool. I like the colors they used. The cutscenes on the other hand are just images and not even very good ones. The game has some good background music. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is quite basic, running and shooting. From time to time the game changes to boss fights, which are changing the game to a gallery shooter. It feels good, but does not reach the heights of a Contra. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. Why? I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a fine shoot 'em up. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Pokemon Silver, Gold and Crystal on the Game Boy Color. These games were developed by Game Freak and released between 1999 and 2001 everywhere. The 3 different versions are mostly the same but have variations in the Pokemon you can find and catch in the game. In this review you see Pokemon Crystal. I think everyone that finds this channel knows Pokemon. You run around, catch Pokemon, train them, defeat the gym leaders and the top 4. Gold, Silver and Crystal are the second generation of Pokemon games. While the main part of the game stayed the same, a lot of new things got included. Colors, new Pokemon, a day-night cycle, Pokemon X, and most importantly for me, a better organization system for the items. That is a game changer compared to the first Pokemon generation. The game looks very good. The Pokemon sprites look great and have little animations at the start of a fight. The overworld looks really nice too. It is colorful and everything is easy recognizable. While the graphics of the game are solid, the music is really outstanding. There are a lot of good tracks that are very memorable. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The game is addicting and has a perfect grind and reward ratio. That the franchise went to the heights it is today is mainly because the first generation's games were incredible. I give the gameplay 5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, the game still holds up. For me personally, it holds up way better than the first generation because of comfort functions like the better item organization and because I like the colorful world. There are tons of randomizers and challenges you can play, so the replayability is as high as it can be. I give the game overall 5 out of 5 points. Today we review Maru's Mission, or Oira Jajamaru Sekai Daiboken, on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Tosi and released in 1990 in Japan and 1991 in North America. I'm not sure if anyone likes the style of the cover of the American version, but for me it looks like they really tried hard to not sell any copies of the game. It is an action jump and run. You run with ninjas through the levels, defeat a mini-boss and a main boss in each level, and try to get back your girlfriend. She got kidnapped for some reason, I'm not really clear why. You can run, jump and shoot shuriken. The enemies sometimes drop power-ups that can do all kind of weird things. Half of the time I had no idea what's going on. The levels are quite short. For an early Game Boy game the game looks fine, and it has background music and sound effects, which sounds like nothing special, but not every game of that time has. I think the presentation is fine. I like the backgrounds and the character designs. The main character looks very cute. Since it is such an early Game Boy game, I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay is okay. The attacks feel fine, but the jump feels really floaty. That is also because you can jump extremely high. I'm not a big fan of that jump. Sometimes it feels like the game has a slowdown whenever there are multiple enemies on the screen. The levels and bosses are nothing special gameplay wise too. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not bad, but also not so good. The levels are short, the boss is boring, there's nothing that stands out that would make it worth playing today. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Donkey Kong Country 2, or in Japan known as Super Donkey Kong 2 on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Rare and released 2004. There is a port of the SNES version of the game that released 1995. It is an action jump and run game in which you play Diddy Kong and his girlfriend Dixie Kong in an attempt to save Donkey Kong, who got captured by King K. Rool. Not only do you play Diddy and Dixie Kong, which play a little bit different from each other, but also multiple enemies that you can ride on. Additionally, the game has some minigames. The graphic style of Donkey Kong Country is a very unique one. It has pre-rendered 3D images for the characters and backgrounds. I always need a moment to get used to that style, but after a little moment it looks very good. Outstanding is also the music. Donkey Kong Country has some great music tracks. The whole game is in a pirate theme and uses all cliches of the genre really well, while taking itself never serious, in a good way. I'm a big fan of the presentation and give it 5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fantastic too. The developers really knew what they were doing when they developed this game. The jumping, enemies and level designs all feel satisfying. Especially Dixie Kong, with her gliding ability, is a lot of fun. The levels also have some good variety and a perfect length to not get annoying. While they are difficult at times, it rarely feels unfair. I give the gameplay 5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a really good handheld port of the SNES version and feels just great. It is an amazing game and I give it overall 5 out of 5 points. Today we review Spirit and Spells, also known as Castleween in the PAL regions and Maho no Pumpkin in Japan, on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Magic Pockets and released 2003. It is Halloween and you get separated from your group and all the demons and skeletons try to kill you. It is an action jump and run in which you play a demon or a witch, and at certain points you can switch between them. You can mainly run, jump and attack. The jumping and attacks are a bit different between the characters. The demon has a double jump while the witch can float. The game is saved by a password system. The presentation of the game is okay. The enemy and level designs are fine and the characters look okay too. The music is also average. Sadly, nothing is very outstandingly good and it is extremely average. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay on the other hand is not average. It is worse. The game doesn't feel good to play. The jumps are a bit weird, especially during platforms. You port a little bit onto them, even if it looks like you wouldn't make it. It is hard to describe. The attack feels like it has no impact and the fun is not there. Additionally, it is a Game Boy Advance game with a password system. That is a very good indicator of what you will get. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is not very good. Or fun, so no. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Battleship, or in Japan known as Kaisen game Navy Blue on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Pack-In Video and released 1989 in Japan and 3 years later, 1992, in North America and the PAL regions. The game is, like the title suggests, a game about the board game Battleship. You play in different stages, always, well, battleships. But they add some special abilities like multi-shot or scanners. The presentation is fine. The game boards are easily recognizable and there are little animations for shooting the rockets and hitting or missing ships. There's also at least one music track. There's not much more to say. It looks like I would imagine a Battleship game on the Game Boy. I give the game 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is battleships. It is not more and not less than that. The special abilities make the game a bit more fast, but besides that all state classical battleship. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? I guess so. If you want to, for whatever reason, play Battleship on the original Game Boy, then this is as good as it gets. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Night Crest on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Lena and released 1991 in Japan and 1992 in North America. The monsters of the world got more aggressive and attack now even in broad daylight. It needs a knight to go on an epic quest to bring balance back, and so your adventure begins. The story of the game is extremely simple and is told in a few lines. This game is a grind-heavy, simple RPG in which you fight your way through the world. The game looks and sounds quite good. The enemy designs are cool and whenever you fight you go in that 2D perspective. Different attacks and spells have different animations and even the enemies have a variety of attacks. We are talking about the original Game Boy in 1991, so the expectations shouldn't be too high, but I found the presentation of the game quite good. The music is also solid. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is kind of as simple as you can make an RPG. You can choose between 4 different attacks that all have slightly different animations and all the enemies are weak against a certain attack. There are also healing and magic items. You run around and grind heavily to get better level and equipment like higher level swords and then you defeat bosses. It is as simple as that. While it is nothing crazy innovative, it is simple and fun. The developers even put it in the option to make the fights faster and the money income a bit higher because they knew how grind heavy the game is. I appreciate that. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you're a fan of grinding. The game has not much else, but every level feels like you get stronger and you can go further, so it is motivating. If you're a fan of a light-hearted grind RPG, you should go for it. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Today we review International Super Soccer, or in Japan known as World Soccer GB on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Konami and released in 1998 everywhere. The game is part of the International Super Soccer series, the Konami football game series before Pro Evolution Soccer. The game focuses on the national teams and has many different European and Asian teams. The game uses different names than the replay names because of missing licenses. You can play single matches, penalty shootouts, or a World Cup with previous qualification rounds. The game is a late Game Boy game and it looks quite impressive. The sprites for the players are not much varied, all players kinda look the same, but they are looking very good. The field is big and there are actually 11 players on the field. Sadly, there's no background music during the matches, and stuff like throw-ins have a whole screen to show what's happening. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. Reviewing the gameplay is not so easy. On one hand, I'm very impressed by the game. They took a game that was way too big for a Game Boy, but still managed to port it in a good playable version. It is a big and quite complex game. You can choose different formation and strategies. The only problem is, they kinda took the fun out of it. The game, while impressive, is simply not much fun to play. It is too serious and realistic for the Game Boy. It feels slow, on rails and predictive. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend the game? No. I like football games and this one is an impressive one for the original Game Boy, but sadly not a fun one. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Today we review Legendary Starfy, on Japan known as Densetsu no Starfy on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Taisen and released 2002 in Japan. It is the first of a series of Starfy games. It is an action platformer, puzzler kind of game in which you play Starfy, a little yellow starfish. The game plays in an underwater setting and you go around in the levels and help some animals of the sea while you kill others. Sometimes you fight a boss and it goes to the next level. The levels are quite big, with multiple doors to different areas, and can be sometimes a bit confusing to navigate. The game looks great. It has nice music and good sound effects, it is very colorful and just cute. The whole game felt a bit like Kirby to me, but in the best way possible. The animations of Starfy are beautiful and the style of the game is great. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay of the game is really good too. You swim, run and glide through the levels, find different NPCs and help them to advance in the levels. Like I said before, sometimes the levels are a bit confusing and there are multiple ways to go. The controls really feel good. In total, the game feels a bit too easy, besides finding the correct way. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a fun playthrough and worth the time. There's also an English patch for the game. There are 2 more Starfy games on the Game Boy Advance, and I'm curious and excited to review them too. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Today we review Word Tris on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Real Time Associates and released exclusively in North America in 1992. Word Tris is exactly what you think it is. A Tetris game where you make words instead of lines to make them disappear. It is a child of Scrabble and Tetris. There's not much else to say. The game looks okay and has some fine music. They didn't take any risk with the presentation. It looks exactly like you would imagine Tetris with Scrabble blocks. Sadly, they didn't try to give it anything unique or interesting from a presentation point. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Gameplay-wise, it is Tetris with letters. Scrabble Tetris. Scriptris. Word Tris. It is not a bad idea, but also very uncreative. I don't know, it didn't impress me very much and wasn't that fun to play. But they also didn't do anything wrong. The developers really kept it on the safe side with this one. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is just not as fun and addicting as Tetris. I think it is a downgrade, but for people that really like Scrabble it might be an upgrade. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Mohun 3 Skip Toon, also known as Mohan 3 The Chicken Chase on the Game Boy Color. Before I tell anything about the game, I will explain a bit about the Mohun franchise. The first Mohun game was made in 1998 as an advertisement game, and you could play it in bars on laptops, and was not meant to be released as a game. Still, a lot of people shared it through emails and websites. In Germany, the game was a giant phenomenon and one of the most viral advertisement campaigns of all times. The game got hyped and everyone played it. Especially in German offices, the game got played during working time and lost the country over 100 billion mark. Software was written to block the game from office computers, and people claimed that shooting chicken was too violent. Later the hype slowed down and the game disappeared, but still everyone in Germany knows Mohun. Back to the game. This game was developed by Similis and released 2002 exclusively in Europe. It is a port of the Mohun 3 PC game and a gallery shooter. Additionally, there are some minigames, like a Tetris clone. The game looks bad on the Game Boy Color. They really just ported the PC version in a bad resolution. The game is nearly non-recognizable, and that is, especially for such a shooter game, a big problem. The music is okay, and the main theme track is full of energy. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. I don't think gallery shooters that normally use a mouse are the best fit for handhelds, and at least in this case I am correct. While the cursor is good controllable, it still doesn't feel so good to play. The minigames are extremely pointless, and the main game just has one level, which is also the case in the original PC version by the way, and that's just lazy. I give the gameplay 1.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a lazy cash grab that tried to make money out of the franchise while there was still a hype. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Today we review Sega Arcade Gallery in the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Sega and released 2003 in North America and the PAL regions. It is a collection of 4 older Sega arcade games: Afterburner, a rail shooter in airplanes; Space Harrier, a third-person rail shooter; Outrun, a driving game; and Super Hang-On, another driving game, but on motorcycles. The games all look okay but a bit pixelated. They ported the old games on the Game Boy Advance, but not in an impressive way. The music is great in all the games, but the visuals are not so good. It looks like they just changed the resolutions of the arcade versions, and I have the feeling the games could have looked better on the GBA if the style got adjusted a bit more for the system. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is... I think the gameplay is like intended. The games feel like arcade games from the late 80s and early 90s. I don't know how to judge that. I think for an arcade collection, that is how the gameplay should feel like. But on the other hand, these games are quite simple games, and for the GBA that is a bit low. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think these games are great for people with the nostalgia of the old arcade games. Without that nostalgia, the games feel presentation and gameplay wise not very special for the Game Boy Advance. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Today we review Ojarumaru, Tsukiyo ga Iki no Takara Mono on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Success and released 2000 exclusively in Japan. It is a game based on the manga Ojarumaru, and it's a Mario Kart-like board game, but with a strong focus on cutscenes with various funny characters. I didn't know the manga series before, but it seems the anime series is the third longest running anime series to date and has 2082 episodes. For reference, at the time of recording, One Piece has a bit over 1100 episodes, so just around half as many as Ojarumaru. The game looks very gag manga-like. The presentation is really nice. The focus is around the dialogues and the wacky characters, and they really put the effort into their cutscenes with them. The music is fine too. I think it is a very cool and unique style. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. Gameplay-wise, the game is a bit lacking. It is really more like reading the manga or watching an episode. There is not much gameplay. You move around the board game part of the game, talk to the people, and from time to time you play very basic minigames. There are some other people on the board running around just like you do, but I didn't see any interaction. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I think this game is really just something for big fans of Ojarumaru. And even then I cannot imagine someone playing that game for long. It is cool and unique, but I think it is enough knowing that it exists. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points.